Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Pokies Burke, and this is the Career Slay podcast. Imagine the impact we could have on society if everyone loved what they did. That's what Career Slay is all about. I'm interviewing people who love their jobs and asking them how they got there and what they've learned along the way. We're here to slay the fear in career. My next guest on Career Slay is Robin Brown. Robin has over 12 years of experience in tech. The first part of her career was spent in IT at Whirlpool Corporation, covering security operations, productivity platforms, e-commerce, M&A, and more. Robin then moved to Google, joining the Professional Services Organization, otherwise known as PSO. After having several customer-facing related roles, Robin is now leading the PSO Application Modernization Technical Practices team for North America, comprised of engineers and technical consultants. Her team empowers Google Cloud customers to optimize and modernize their most complex applications through the people and technology of Google Cloud. Robin graduated from the University of Notre Dame with a bachelor's in sociology and a supplemental major in computer applications. Aside from catching up with an old friend, what I love about this episode is how open Robin is about her professional journey. She talks about how she wanted to be a doctor, but couldn't quite cut it and pivoted to sociology, which she credits she still uses to this day. We also talk about what it's like to be a woman in tech and dealing with imposter syndrome, especially in a technical field. We discuss mentorship and how it can be a game changer in your career. And finally, we talk about setting boundaries so that you can achieve work-life balance. If you're interested in working in tech or curious what it's all about, this episode was made for you. Welcome to Career Slay, Robin.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
So we go way back to college. The first time I met you, you were trying to get me to vote for you for student council. I actually voted for the other person. I'm so sorry.
It makes sense. I don't hold it against you.
Well, Robin, thanks again for being on Career Slay. Let's start from the beginning. Tell us your story.
I am one of four. I'm the last of four. I grew up in a military household, so we moved around a bit when I was a kid. Chicago is probably the most home out of all those locations. But my dad is from Oklahoma, so I have a lot of family there, gone back quite a bit. And then my mom's from Korea, grew up going to Korea quite a bit.
What were you like as a child?
I think being the last of four, just constantly fighting for attention, wanting my siblings to love me and adore me.
So what did you study at Notre Dame?
I started off as pre-med, did every version of that, but landed as a sociology major with computer science or computer applications as it was formerly known.
Why sociology?
I took, I think, one sociology class and I really found it super intriguing, studying people, societies, what makes things tick. And I credit my sociology major every single day of my career. I think it's the thing that makes me more successful. I think the computer application, the computer science degree probably got me hired, but the sociology major makes me thrive. The technology is challenging, but it's not the mystery. It's not the super hard part. People are the hard part. So the more you understand that, the more successful you'll be.
Wow. So what exactly did you study and how did that lead to your first job?
I remember I had a database class. I had a few coding classes. We had a few other system design classes, networking design classes. To be honest, that technology, I remember the courses, but I don't necessarily remember the meat of it. I think it just got my foot in the door. Then I had a conversation with someone who is interviewing people for Whirlpool Corporation based out of Michigan. And then I joined enterprise IT. So I joined an IT job.
What does that mean?
Information technology. So it's basically not every corporation, but a lot of corporations have an IT arm. They're all the people that make sure all the systems stay on and are working, functioning. And then they're all the people that help them enhance and improve the technology.
And this is beyond just the restart your computer.
Yeah. Okay. It's great advice. It applies to a lot of situations. You can even tell people, if someone's really stressed out, just turn it on and off. Go take a nap. Come back. Usually works.
It really does.
Yeah.
So just to take a step back, because we kind of brushed over it. So you were pre-med.
Yeah.
Is that what you want? You wanted to be a doctor or a physician all your life?
Yeah. So I grew up with having a lot of inner ear problems. I'm now at 16 total ear surgeries.
Oh my God.
I've been partially deaf most of my life, which is just from scarred tissue, progressive hearing loss. But I spent a lot of time in the hospital and I spent a lot of time in the ER, and I saw doctors as heroes.
Why did you decide to move away from that?
I couldn't cut it. I mean, I'll be honest with myself. It required a rigor of academics that I just didn't have. I didn't have that muscle. I do think that I'm more of a people person. I love socializing, and there's something that's super addicting about that for me, and probably just took away, all my attention from books. But it's hard to give up on your dream like that.
So why did you decide to stick with the IT path?
When I started to find different passion areas, different purposes, different motivators in the work that I was doing, I felt very fulfilled. And I realized I don't necessarily need to do that to feel fulfilled and feel happy. I think it was something that, 6-year-old, 5-year-old Robin put up on a pedestal and was blinded to everything else.
So what did you do at Whirlpool?
Yeah, so I joined the Enterprise IT Group, Global Information Systems, GIS, and I had all sorts of jobs. I started in a leadership development program that rotated me through different groups. So I sat on security operations, general operations, network, platforms, e-commerce, all sorts of different roles. And then I actually launched Google Workspace, which was called, I think, Google Apps at the time, or Google for Work at the time, which Gmail, Docs, all that stuff, to Whirlpool. And then my final job before I left Whirlpool to go to Google was I was working in mergers and acquisitions. So looking at bringing on manufacturing factories into Whirlpool.
Wow, that covers a lot.
Yeah, it's probably the vascular system of the body. If you think about all the departments being the arms, the legs, the head, all of that stuff, the core. Every department at every corporation probably has a mirror into IT somehow. Mm-hmm. Just technology is that prevalent.
Yeah. So why did you transition from Whirlpool to Google?
Because I had previously worked with Google, deploying their different services, different products, and all of that. I still had close contacts with Googlers, and one of them had reached out and said, hey, there's this position open on our team. We think you'd be a great fit. But I wasn't necessarily looking for a new job. Mm-hmm. Alex and I had a place in Michigan, feeling very comfortable with where we were at. I was very happy with my job. And I was like, I'll just entertain this. I'll entertain this interview. I had worked with Google when I was an undergrad. And
you were an ambassador, like a brand ambassador, I remember.
Yeah, and I got to see all these different products, and I got to meet Googlers, and I went to conferences for Google, and there was something missing, and I didn't realize that it was missing. Mm-hmm. And so when I went through the interview process, I started feeling it again, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize this was missing. I want it back.
Yeah, that's so interesting because you said you were comfortable where you were at, and a lot of people wouldn't want to rock the boat. Yeah. And then the second thing is that you figured out that not only were they actually interviewing you, but you were interviewing them in a way and seeing if it was a good fit.
Absolutely. I mentor a lot of people. I always remind people, pick up on those cues during the interview and try to interview back, because your happiness is depending on a lot of the people that are interviewing you.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the scope of work. You could have an incredible job, but if the people around you are not embracing you, it's not going to be worth it.
Yeah. It's about culture fit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've had several roles at Google. Can you walk us through some of that?
I joined in something called professional services, which is the consulting arm of Google Cloud. And Google Cloud was going through this transition of being more enterprise ready and building out services that were billable. So
I think most people are familiar with Google being the search engine or browser. Mm-hmm. But what you're talking about is how Google actually generates its revenue through enterprise customers, and you being that conduit between Google and the enterprise, right?
Yeah. So Google makes its money all sorts of ways. Ads is probably the most famous, but then there are other services that Google Cloud offers, which are basically cloud hosting. Microsoft as Azure and Amazon as AWS.
Yep.
Yeah, so I primarily work with enterprises who are trying to transition to Google Cloud and then using our services optimally.
Got it. Okay. So how did you become a people manager at Google?
I transitioned from the technical account manager role into a consultant role, focusing on application development, application modernization, and that demand just continued to grow. So we hired more consultants in it, and I was acting as the team lead, and then I was asked to take over management responsibilities and build out that competency. If I take a step back, there are different specializations. So there's infrastructure, data, security, application modernization, app dev, SAP, and artificial intelligence, machine learning. So those are my peer groups. And all of us together kind of hit the whole tech stack for a customer.
So how big is your team?
I'm at 30 and growing. We're one of the lucky areas that has a lot of demand, so we'll grow a little bit more. And we span across North America.
So as your role has evolved, how has that changed from being more on the technical side to being now more on the people side?
You know, I mentor a bunch of people on imposter syndrome, but I have my own that I deal with because I'm getting further and further removed from the tech. The things that my team needs me to do are more working cross-functionally, getting funding, making business cases, all that sort of things. So I've definitely not fully stepped away from tech because I still touch it every day, but I'm not getting my hands dirty as much as I was. I'm more managing the people that are incredible at it and arguably way better at it than I ever was.
It's like you started out with the computer science technical ability, and then you've now shifted into utilizing your sociology degree more.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I got a little bit of flack when I got that degree back in the day, but I think it's helped me more than my computer science degree.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience being a woman in tech?
I'm definitely proud to be a woman in tech, and I would be lying if I said I haven't faced adversity or challenges solely because I am a woman. And then it doesn't really help that I am a woman of color and I present very young. I was actually talking about this with someone I mentor who's a woman, and I admitted there are things that I do artificially to make sure that I'm safe for my career. And I kind of put up these buffers between myself and my male coworkers. Even though I love my male coworkers, they're some of my really good friends, I still stay my distance, and I do that artificially. So for instance, there are happy hours at work all the time. There are happy hours with customers and partners and all that stuff. I don't drink at any of them. And I always say, I'll drink with my friends, but I won't drink with my coworkers. And there is a sense of safety there that I don't want to relinquish. I will choose not to stay out. I'll choose to stay away from a lot of those outside of networking situations, which could prevent me from having the side conversations or deepening those relationships that make work really easy. So I just need to understand how to capitalize my time during the work hours to make those relationships deeper. But I definitely safeguard myself as a female in tech.
Yeah. So to dig into the women in tech challenges you've experienced a little bit more, can you talk about the imposter syndrome you felt?
I will always have a little bit of imposter syndrome. I think that's healthy. There's a saying that you don't want to be the smartest person in the room, which I agree with. But there are situations that make it worse and kind of give you a false sense of being an imposter when you're not. And there's situations like, as the only female on the call or in the group setting, having to take notes or being mistaken as a admin assistant, you know, being asked to do all the logistics, fun party stuff, the cultural things. And these are other people doing that to you, which makes your imposter syndrome worse, you know, wondering, okay, people see value in me, but they're only seeing the more admin assistant type of, or project management type of skills rather than my technical skills. And so what I tell people that I mentor is draw the line there, because you need to protect yourself from the value that other people see in you, and tell people show people that you have these technical capabilities and refuse the project management type of stuff if you're an engineering profile, So I think there's always imposter syndromes, but how people interact with you make it worse if you allow it.
Yeah, I think there's this misperception that in order to showcase your value, you have to do some of these peripheral things that aren't actually contributing to your core job.
Yeah.
Like the party planning, the note taking. But that actually takes away from shining the light on what you're truly good at.
Absolutely. All those moments count, and they make the imposter syndrome worse and worse. And then as you feed into those services or those skills, it continues to grow because you're not showcasing other skill sets.
How has mentoring played a role into your career?
The old global CIO at Whirlpool, Mike Heim, I have to give him a lot of credit. I was a little lost when he was mentoring me. I was pretty young. And he was the global CIO. He just cut right through it, cut through the imposter syndrome, broke me down like in a good way and said, what are you worried about? Here's your potential. Go out and do this. This is how you get influence. This is how you lead. He was offering me advice almost after every time I spoke, which you have to build a muscle of not taking things personal.
Yeah.
But it really helped me. It created this self-improvement engine that I don't think has ever shut off. This all had to do with rolling out Google at a global scale. And he put a lot of trust in me. So he sent me on trips to Italy, to Brazil, to talk to my international counterparts. I was leading conversations with the EMEA CIO, the LATAM CIO, and very, very comfortable. And then I started talking to the CEO of Whirlpool, and he was just kind of shaping me and molding me to be able to do that. So the more I flex that muscle, speaking at higher levels, getting pushback, being on my feet and being able to answer to these things with good answers, I credit him for trusting me and then giving me the advice on how to be successful.
That's incredible. I had no idea. And just like to see you and where you are today, how polished you are and how accomplished you are, it makes a ton of sense, like how you got there.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about some of that advice that he gave you.
Well, he made me go through public speaking. How do you hold your own? How do you come off more articulate? How do you hold the conversation and speak with authority? So I had a private coach that went through all of that. And then I had other coaching that was on personality, conflict resolution, how to think about problems beyond what you can just see in front of you. So I hope that I'm a naturally empathetic person, but as far as business is concerned, he increased my awareness and my aperture of decision making instead of just seeing right in front of me.
Wow, that's incredible. All right, so why is it important to find purpose or passion in your career?
I think that's everything. That's why you get up in the morning, why you feel fulfilled throughout the day. I feel like if you don't have a purpose, then things are just going to fall flat, I am passionate about the technology side of my job. I do think there are some really cool things happening, but I've found different purposes in my role, whether it's through mentoring or helping someone else's career or, making a group feel elevated that didn't feel elevated before. Because I think the technology is great, but it's probably not the thing that is like my beating heart.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to, your sociology background, the emphasis on people, your extrovertedness, just thinking about the empathy that, you've developed and that muscle you've developed. It's really great to see how when we started the conversation, you were so set on being a hero in the medical field, but now you're a hero in people's lives, just in the corporate scenario.
I hope so. Maybe that's overplaying it a little bit, but if I can do any sort of good or have any sort of positive impact for even a single person, I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So looking back, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Invest in Google. That would be great. I mean, 20-year-old Robin, you knew.
I knew 20-year-old Robin.
She was chaotic, right?
I told you to wear sunscreen that one time, and you ended up looking like a lobster.
Yeah, I wear sunscreen now. It's in my lotion. It's in my face lotion. Gosh, just because you're half Asian doesn't mean you can't burn. I would say, this is kind of a sad part of me. I think it's a moment of regret that I do want to hold on to because I do want to do something about it. But I'm half Korean. I'm very, very proud of that heritage. I adore my mom and her family. Every trip that I've had to Korea has just been, I mean, it just feels like home. It's strange because I wasn't raised there. But the one thing that really kills me about all of that is that I don't speak Korean fluently, and it is like a dagger to my heart. And I would say, like, 20-year-old Robin, find a language course, get really, really serious about it, study abroad for a year or semester in Korea, take advantage of the time that you are when you're a little bit younger and you can take those big moves, go halfway around the world. My mom speaks English fluently. There isn't a language barrier there, but there's this last little, maybe it's the last mile that I will
that
never,
emotional depth.
Yeah, that I'll just never understand.
Yeah.
And that hurts.
Wow. That's so different. I've never heard that answer before.
And invest in Google. And invest in Google.
And wear sunscreen. All right. So if you had to sum up your career in 3 words, what would that be?
I would say it wasn't luck. I am very thoughtful and intentional about the decisions of where my career is going. Some people say they got lucky. And I want a lot of people to know that it's not luck. You're very valuable. You're bringing a lot to the table, and you're being recognized appropriately when you are recognized. And there are certain unfortunate situations that happen that could be seen as unlucky or bad timing. I wouldn't say that's true either. Luck isn't your destiny for your job or defining your path for your career path. So yeah, it wasn't luck.
Wow. It was hard work.
Yeah, it's hard work for sure. For sure.
Just on that point, because it's top of mind for me, what do you think of work-life balance?
I have definitely got into a spiral where I have worked too much and had very little balance, but I've gotten really good at it. I've gotten a lot better at work-life balance. I believe that there is some sort of balance even within your work that allows for you to bring your whole self to work so you feel comfortable stepping away. When I leave the office, so I still go into the office a lot, but the really good thing about going into the office, it gives me a physical separation. And so when I leave the office, I truly leave the office. It takes a lot for me to log in again.
It's about being present in the moments that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, like, your tombstone or your obituary is not going to read Robin Brown, really great at answering emails in a timely manner. It's going to read wife, sister, potentially mother, friend. So I think that's what matters. But I have fallen into almost burnout.
Thank you for sharing, because I think burnout is so prevalent. But at the same time, you have that autonomy to create the boundary in your life and to live your life how you want to.
Every company is going to take as much from you as you allow that company.
100%.
So you need to figure out how much you're willing to give and to know truly what you're sacrificing, especially, unfortunately, women, even though we're working in the workforce, we still carry the burden of managing the household.
Yeah.
And the caregiving of a child if you're a parent. And so there's no way to be perfect necessarily, and you have a lot of this weight, but you can create some sort of balance.
Love that. Thank you, Robin, for joining us on Career Slay. There were so many great insights here, and I know that you're going to help a lot of people with your story and just inspire a lot of people, especially women in tech.
Hopefully just moving the dial a little bit. Yeah, but thank you so much for having me.
Wear sunscreen. The Career Slay podcast is a co-production of Career Slay and Wild Reply, produced by Michael Burke. If you like the show, subscribe and give us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. New episodes drop every other Tuesday, so stay tuned for some great conversations on slaying the fear in career.